Hi, welcome. This is Aaron, and I'm at the Beth Emanuel Virtual Kollel, and we are starting our study of Parashat Beha'alotecha today. And I've got with me Darren. And Darren, do you have any site that you'd like to share? Anything that you'd like to point people to?
Not at the moment. I'm here to see what you got to say, man. I mean, jump in at some point.
Okay. You can find more videos like this at bethemanuel.org/kollel. And we just study the weekly Parashah, and I try to keep it to a small enough amount of time that it's enjoyable for everybody, and you can do it every day. So we're going to be starting in Parashat Beha'alotecha, which is in Numbers chapter 8, starting with verse 2. Is that where we're starting?
Is it not verse 1? Let me see.
Verse 1, you would think, okay. I think it must have just clicked at verse 2. Sorry, verse 1. And so let's let me share my screen with you, and we'll get into it. Moshe lemor. Of course, this is the most common phrase probably in the entire Torah. We've talked about that before, but it's basically the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, and then verse 2, Daber el Aharon ve'amarta elav beha'alotcha et hanerot el mul pnei hamenorah ya'iru shivat hanerot. So this starts out by saying daber, and so this is the same basic root as this other word by daber, but the difference is this is in a command form. So he's commanding. So the Lord is commanding, speak. El Aharon. El is a preposition that basically means to or toward. So he's speaking to Aharon, his brother. The Amarta Elav. Okay, so this comes from the root Amar, which means say, and then Amarta puts it in a form that sounds like past tense and second person. So you said. Amarta is you said, but because of the vav in the front, and this is just very common in biblical Hebrew, it reverses the tense and makes it a more narrative. And in this particular verb form, when that happens, the stress. Notice how the stress moves to the end of the word. So it's amarta, whereas you said would be amarta. But amarta elor to el, which means to. So the el there is the same on the end, is a suffix that means him or his. In this case, it's to him. So to him, elav. So speak to Aharon and say to him. Okay. And the sages have different explanations of what's the difference between speaking and saying, and you can see into that right now. So we have Beha'alotecha. So the root of that is found right here. It's technically just these two words, or these two letters plus the hey. Well, we had it up there a second ago. What happened to it? Showed up on the right. I'm not sure what happened, but this comes from Ayin Lamed Hey, and that's to go up. And so then in this particular word, this hey in the beginning, or this like ha'alot, means to cause something to go up. So, so have you ever heard of korban olah? It's like a burnt offering. It goes up, or ole means he's ascend. Halot means set something up, bring something up, lift something up. It's in basically it's in a verb form called a hefil, where the verbs become causative. It's causing something else to happen. So, but now it's it's a verbal noun, which means it's an act. You know how a noun is the thing, but maybe the thing is doing something. So like setting up or reading, or it's the act of performing a verb. And so that's what this particular verb form is like. It's the act of setting something up, and then an ending cha on the end, which makes it possessive. So it's you setting up. Beha'alotecha is your act of setting up, and then this bit in the beginning, when it's connected to that kind of a verbal noun, it means when or as, that kind of describing at the time when you do this. So when you, ultimately, is how we would say that in English, when you set up.
Aaron.
Yes.
So in a more rigid
Darren?
translation of that, would it be something like in your setting up of?
Well, your connection seems to be cutting out, or a little bit corrupt.
Gotcha. Let me type my question here.
Repeat that.
Let me type my question to you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you a little bit, but if you type your question, that'll be great.
Okay.
So we have Deber el Aharon ve'amarta elav beha'alotecha. So speak to Aharon and say to him, when you set up, or in your setting up. And then marker, so it tells you that whatever comes after this is going to be what the verb is applying to. So Darren asks, in a rigid translation, would it be something like in your setting up? Yeah, that would be one viable translation, in your setting up. Yep. I hesitate to call something rigid translation, because, like, for example, this prefix prefix, or prepositions like this don't have a one-to-one semantic value, with an English word. So we could translate it in there, and that kind of works in English, but bit doesn't mean in any more than it means as or when, because it's not an English word. It just has a different range of meaning. So people might prefer to translate it as in your setting up. Bit means in some other contexts, but I don't think that's more rigid. I think the notion of a rigid translations or literal translations is a bit of an illusion at times. It's a fundamental maybe miss how language works, because the way that a certain word might be in a certain language, it doesn't have a meaning. It can stand in for a range of meanings, and then in another language you might have a word that stands in for an overlapping range of meanings, but they don't necessarily correspond one-to-one. That's all I'm saying. So as I was saying, indicates that whatever comes after that is what the verb is going to happen. It's the object. So right now we're setting up. What are we setting up? Et answers the question of what is it happening to, and it's ha-nerot. And so the root of nerot is ner. Ner means candle, lamp, that kind of thing. And then the plural of ner is nerot. Nerot. And then ha in the beginning is the way we indicate indicate that something is definite. So it's, in English we would say the lamps. So when you set up the lamps, so we don't translate at with a word. We translate at with word order in English. So it's not that we leave it untranslated. If we didn't, if we might say the lamps when you set up, which doesn't make any sense in English, but that's why we say in English what we'll do is we will put the object of a verb after the verb, but in Hebrew you don't have to do that. So in Hebrew you could actually have the word nerot somewhere else in the sentence, but because the et is telling you that that's what it's happening to. So el mul is a prepositional phrase here, el being similar to this el right here, and mul, it's kind of an interesting word that it indicates as it's not, in this case it's not circumcised. It's describing the front of something, the across from something, it's facing. So el mul together is a prepositional phrase. So that's basically what's going on here. Beha'alotecha et hanerot el mul. So when you set up the lamps facing or across from, Pnei ha-menorah. So here's another our prepositional phrase. Well, in this case, it's the face. Like panim means face, and it's used very much metaphorically, or idiomatically, I should say. So it can mean the front. It can mean the presence. So, panim becomes panei because it's what we described in previous videos as a noun construct. So it's technically a noun like face, but then it's plural. So because the word face is always plural, it's sort of like it's just one. And then when it gets connected to another noun like menorah, it gets changed from panim to panei, and the im gets changed to a. And so Pnei ha-menorah would literally mean the face of the menorah. You know, panim is the area in front of the menorah. And so el mul, Pnei, ends up being kind of a combined prepositional phrase that's describing in front of the face of the menorah, which is a little bit redundant, but it's this sort of more descriptive. So menorah is, of course, the like the lamp stand, and in modern Hebrew, this is just the word used for any kind of lamp. A floor lamp is a menorah, and usually in biblical Hebrew, we're referring to the seven-branched lampstand that's in the temple, and then if we have ha in the front, that makes it definite, so it's the menorah. And now the rest of the verse, ya'iru. Okay, so this is a verb, which means it's related to the word for or. You can see here, right here, or to shine, or to as a noun, the or means light, and so as a verb it means to shine light or to be bright. And so but this is ya'iru, so it's in the imperfect form, which means that it's describing something that it will happen or should happen. This is the u on the end tells you it's plural, so it's basically they will shine, and it's also in the he-fill form. So That's this one right here. Hefil. Basically, when I say hefil, verbs in Hebrew have different patterns that they can follow using the same set of root letters. You can it's very neat. You can take those same root letters and split them up into several different patterns that will give a different nuance to the verb. And so hefil, like I said before with ha'alotecha, it's the same verb pattern, is causative. So ya'ir or ya'iru is causing light to shine. As you can see, to be light, well, we're in the simple form, and it's called kal. It just means to be light, to become bright, to shine. And then, but hefil is a little bit more like you're describing causing light to come out. So it's to give light, to shine, to illumine, to light up, right? To brighten an area. And so, ya'iru, it's describing the nerot. It's plural, so they shall give light, or they shall give brighten. And shivat. Okay, this is the number 7, but it's it's like a noun here. It's used as a noun. It's like a set of 7. So normally, in most languages, the numbers are actually adjectives. So we'd have, say, like, and in Hebrew this is kind of the case also, but in biblical Hebrew it frequently happens where the numbers are described as nouns or used as nouns, where you're describing a set of some number. So Shivat Nerot is saying the group of 7 lamps, right? So Shivat Nerot is the 7 lamps, and so Shiva. Well, Sheva is the feminine form of if you're just counting 7, or if you're describing 7 things that are feminine. In the masculine form, it's Shiva, and if you're in traditional Jewish mourning rituals, you have to sit for 7 days. You're sitting Shiva. Same word, and then when it's used in a noun construct, the becomes at. So shivat becomes 7 of, and hanerot, the lamps, so the 7 lamps. Well, we didn't get very far. I need to finish up now. So our final translation is something along the lines of, speak to Aaron, to him, when you set up the lamps, toward the front of the face of the menorah, or toward the front of the menorah, they shall shine the 7 lamps. And so actually, the things that shall shine, this is the noun that's happening, and this is a good example of what I was saying before, where the word order doesn't actually indicate who's doing, like in English, the word order indicates who's doing what and what it's happening to. In Hebrew, it's not like that. So this phrase shivat nerot is actually what is. So the 7 nerot shall shine. All right. You know what? And actually, I want to clarify something now as I'm looking at this. I think this prepositional phrase, El mul panei hamenorah, is describing how the 7 lamps should shine. So I think probably to translate this correctly in English, the best way to do it would be to say, we have to completely reverse the order. The 7 lamps shall shine toward the. That's the idea. What's going on here? So speak to Aaron and say to him, when you set up the lamps, the 7 lamps should shine toward the, and so it's just, or to provide light toward the front of the menorah. that's describing the arrangement of it. All right. Questions or thoughts before we sign off?
Very good.
All right. Thanks for joining me, Darren. Remember to visit www.bethemanuel.org/Kolel for more videos of my friends and colleagues. We just want to study and thought, why not invite you to join us? So stay in touch with us and have a nice week. And hopefully I'll see you Wednesday. I'll try and come back maybe around 9 o'clock for another broadcast. Thank you and have a great week.